Okay, today we are blessed to be joined by Senate President Don Gaetz from Okaloosa, Senate District number 1, I believe. He has a unique perspective in that he began as a school board member, then he was a superintendent, and then on pretty much all of the education committees, and then Senate President. So he's seen it stem to stern, if you will, as far as education goes. He joined us at the beginning of the year to kick off our legislative town halls, and we're blessed as presidents to have the opportunity to hear how it went and what we can look forward to. At this time, I'll hand it over to Erica Donalds, Florida Coalition of School Board Members President.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our legislative town hall wrap-up, and a special thanks to President Gaetz for taking the time today to speak with school board members from across the state. I know I've been very much looking forward to your perspective and also what your thoughts are on how we move forward and continue some of the reforms that you've certainly led on and contributed to, of which we are very thankful. And again, I just want to say for our members, this is one of those value adds that the Florida Coalition of School Board Members provides, the direct access to legislators and influencers like Senator Gaetz. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Senate President Gaetz. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the chance to be here. And it is true that I started as a school board member and then slid all the way down to Senate President. I can tell you that being a school board member was, in my view, the most important job that I've had in my 22 years of public service, which are coming to an end in about 5 months. So thanks for the chance to serve, and thanks for the chance to work with the coalition members during the past couple of legislative sessions as we've made what I think are some important changes. This year was a good year for students because there's more choice for students, and once students make choices, there are more opportunities for them to move at their own pace, not to be held back, and to get extra help if they need it. And there's recognition that when students are receiving education and training that is relevant to the economy and relevant to their place in the economy, then more funding is provided. And secondly, in my view, it was a good year for parents because under the legislation that we passed, Senate Bill 1066, which passed as House Bill 7029, parents are able to choose to send their children to any school in Florida that has space available. That's, in one sentence, probably the biggest public school choice reform in America. And then third, I think it was a good year for school board members for a couple of reasons. One is because we actually passed legislation passed provisions in 7029 that allow your board members, the people who are part of your organization, to make the decision to use their portion of dues for the support of your organization as opposed to being forced into the Florida School Board Association. So that provided you with more choices. And then also the legislation that we passed, 7029, did something that I didn't think was necessary, but it turned out to be necessary, and that is to affirm the right and indeed the obligation of school board members to visit schools and to be respected therein as independently elected public officials, not as people who have to get the superintendent's permission in order to visit schools and observe what's going on there. So I think a good year overall for students, for parents, for school board members. Not that we got everything done that we should get done, but I think it was a very good year, and I particularly would want to thank Senator Stargell and Senator Benaquisto, who were extraordinarily helpful to me as we put together Senate Bill 1066, which included provisions that they had authored that didn't make it through the process, but that we were able to include in the final bill that passed. So thanks to you, thanks to Jeff Bergosh from our area, from Northwest Florida, who kept me advised of all the perspectives of people who are on the bottom of 4-1 and 3-2 votes in school boards. I was there. I know that. And I don't know why in the world Jeff wants to run for the county commission. That's the only job worse than a school board member job, but he's doing it anyway, so we're going to lose him as a school board member, but I want to personally thank him for being the guy who was always there for me to keep me advised about education issues. And with that, maybe we can just have some interchange, if that's okay, Madam President.
Great.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you so much for that. I'll go ahead and kick off the first question to get things going, Senator Gaetz. We know, obviously, we supported your bill 1360 in this past session and the Sunshine Solution efforts around the state to bring some flexibility to our districts and classrooms when it comes to standardized testing and hopefully reduce some of the concerns that parents have had about excessive standardized testing while maintaining the accountability that we all believe in. What are your thoughts on the future of that movement?
Well, first of all, that bill would have passed the Senate. It passed all the Senate committees. We had it on the Senate floor, but I did not move to a vote on the Senate floor, even though it would have passed, because the bill never moved an inch in the House of Representatives. There was a very, very strong effort made by the Department of Education, and frankly also by a private foundation and by the governor's office to stop in its tracks any reform of testing and assessment, and therefore did not move in the House, although it was it had a tailwind in the Senate. My theory is that that bill or any kind of testing reform will not pass the legislature until the Department of Education is either convinced that it's okay to reform testing, that it's not a slap in their face, or the governor becomes persuaded that a testing reform bill ought to be passed. I just can't imagine any more pressure than we've had in the last 18 months to pass testing reform, but unfortunately the pressure on the House of Representatives from the Department of Education, from the foundation, the foundation that Governor Bush started, and from the governor's office, Governor Scott's office, made passage impossible this year. I understand that Senator Montford is going to champion this issue next year. I wish him well. I won't be there. If anybody could put together a bipartisan coalition in the Senate to do it, it would be Bill Montford. But I have very little hope that it would pass the House of Representatives until the governor takes his thumb off the scale.
Great.
All right, thanks for that answer, unfortunately. Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I was just asking, go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll go ahead and unmute you. Does anyone have a question? Don't be shy. Let's see here. Well, Jeff said he's in a noisy environment. He said to thank you for the accolades and the caution. His question, he does have a question. Jeff Regash in Escambia asks, his question is how to handle the transgender issue in the locker room specifically to make sure everyone's privacy is respected, but to align with the mandates.
Wow, here we are with a $19 trillion debt going to $21 trillion, illegal immigration causing all sorts of problems for us economically and socially and otherwise, and ISIS on the march, and the President of the United States wants to be the bathroom police in our schools. Honestly, I wish he'd go back to playing golf and do less harm. This was, in my judgment, a wrong-headed federal mandate. Obviously, as someone pointed out to me today, when we become addicted to federal funds, as we are in virtually every area of our state's functions in education and transportation and health care and so forth, when we become addicted to the federal portion of funds, then they have us. And that's the hook, as you well know. If in theory at least, the Department of Education could say to a school district, well, if you don't do what we're telling you to do, we're going to stop giving you any federal funds. Here's my feeling. My feeling is with all the school districts in the United States, and with an election looming in a few months, you're going to see some litigation that will start. I don't know whether the litigation will be well-founded or not. It depends on whether the people are standing. But there'll be litigation that will ensue over this issue. And I believe that we will have a presidential election and congressional elections before the litigation will wind its way through the court process. Therefore, I don't believe the enemy's in sight. In my view, as a former superintendent of schools, I would simply say we're going to continue to operate as we've operated in the past. We're not going to change and have some kind of, transgender accommodation policy that allows boys to go into girls' locker rooms. That ain't going to happen. If I was superintendent of schools, it just wouldn't happen. And I think you line up behind the hundreds, if not thousands, of other school districts who are going to be in litigation over this matter. And by the time they get to us, my feeling is we'll have a new president and we'll have a new Congress. And my hope as well is that we will have members of Congress who will introduce and pass legislation that would override this regulatory overreach. I made that point to someone who's running for Congress here in Northwest Florida, where I live. I made that point to him today as he came by my house to borrow a necktie. He's my son. I told him, by God, you better be sensitive to this issue, and he already was. So my answer as a former school board member and former superintendent would be, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing. We're not going to pay much attention to this thing coming from Washington, and put us in the line for litigation. By the time you get to us, you guys will be out of office.
Wow. Thanks so much for the thorough answer. That's from so many perspectives. All right, well, now people are starting to rise up here with some questions. Tina Calderon in Seminole County, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you and so you can ask your question or comment. Tina? Tina? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and leave the channel open. If you'd like, after this next question, you can ask. Let's see, Stephen Moss asks, are you worried at all in regards to the recently passed bills in regards to the FHSAA, especially in regards to recruitment of athletes switching schools? Senator?
I would be worried, except that we placed into the law very draconian measures having to do with recruitment. If a person who works for the school system recruits an individual for an extracurricular activity, the first action of recruitment would result in a $5,000 fine. That's pretty steep. The second time there would be a recruitment violation by that individual, we would suspend his coaching duties and fine him $5,000. And the third time would take his teaching certificate away, so he can't work in the state of Florida, and fine him $5,000. That's pretty draconian. That's pretty tough. And the team would lose, any awards or any rights that they may have gained through victories that were won while they had a recruited person on the team. If a person who's not affiliated with the school system, like a parent, recruits, the team loses all of their victories, and they lose, all of the opportunities that winning with a recruited student would give them as far as postseason play. So pretty tough anti-recruiting provisions are in the bill. I think that had to be there when you do say that any student can attend any school where there's space available, and once there, they can try out for. No guarantee they're going to make. They can try out for the debate team, the tennis team, the chess team, because we have so many students in Florida, as all of you school board members know, so many students in Florida who are mobile, who come in and out. One of the schools in Okaloosa County, one of the elementary schools in my county, where I was superintendent, over 40% of the students who entered in kindergarten never made it to the 5th grade. They never made it to the 5th grade because of the amount of mobility associated with military moves. So we have to make it possible for students to participate when they move in to an area. We will need to make sure they have choice among schools, but once they're there, we need to make sure they have access to extracurricular activities. No guarantee they can make the team, whether it's the chess team or the football team, but they should have the opportunity to audition, to try out. And if there's recruiting, we drop the hammer. We fine them, we take away their coaching, and we take away their teaching certificate. After we have a couple of heads on the spike out in front of the castle, I think that'll improve morale.
Thank you for that thorough answer. And it's important that we get the message out because there is a lot of confusion surrounding that issue particularly. Okay, Erica, actually we'll open it up to Tina. Dr. Calderon, did you have your question? Are you ready to ask? No? All right, moving to Erica.
President Gaetz, what are your thoughts on, there's a lot of talk about universal school choice, you know, and basically that being the ultimate goal of where we're going, where parents, you know, as you said, we just took a huge step towards that with the public school choice, but really creating the ultimate competition and mobility. What are your thoughts on how we get there? Is it imminent? What are the obstacles? Just any thoughts on what you think is pertinent as we move forward?
I would support universal school choice. I believe that giving parents the opportunity to choose their children's school, if there's space available, is exactly the right thing to do. I don't think it'll happen anytime soon in Florida, and my guess is that if it were tried, it would get snarled up in not only the usual political process in Tallahassee, but also get snarled up in litigation. So I don't expect universal school choice to happen anytime soon, but I think we have to keep taking as many steps as possible toward giving parents options and giving students options about their education, whether it's more online education or supporting charter schools that are actually legitimate and educate students instead of just being a front for a real estate scheme. I think we need to make sure that the actions we took this past year are really followed up on, and that is that parents know that they can choose the school that they want their children to attend, so long as there's space available in that school. Those are areas that I think we need to make progress and make sure that we properly implement those laws. But universal school choice, I think we're a long way off in Florida. One of the reasons, by the way, I think we may be a long way off is that we really don't have any, to knowledge, there are no statewide leaders, no elected statewide leaders who have made universal school choice a central issue. And until and unless there are, I think that's an issue that, again, would be very, very difficult to push, and it would take leadership. And I don't know the name of anyone who would or who has or who would make that a central feature of their legislative career or of their governorship or of their commissionership of the Department of Education. Don't know who those people are.
Thank you. Okay, well, Tina has actually typed her message in here, and she wanted to she wanted us to thank you, Tina Calderon from Seminole County, wanted to thank you, Senator Gaetz, for your support of the Sunshine Solution from Seminole. She says that she will continue to bring forward next year. Dr. Griffin will be presenting at the National Conference on Assessment in June to convince other states of the value of NRT over CRT. Only 29 states are supportive at this point. Would you care to comment on that?
I welcome that. I welcome Seminole's continued persistence on this issue and give them a great deal of credit for raising the issue and doing more than just raising it, but actually doing the detailed work that formed the basis of the legislation that was welcomed in the Senate. And all I would say is work closely with Senator Monford and try to figure out a way to move the governor.
Thank you. Any other questions? You can either type them in the chat window or raise your hand. Dr. Calderon says thank you. Okay. Erica, did you have anything?
Do you have any?
Sure, I have all kinds of questions.
So do I.
I'll be happy to ask.
Yeah, I'm trying not to monopolize the questions.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Senator Gaetz, there was a difference of opinion between yourself and the House when it came to charter capital funding. And you didn't cover that in the intro, so maybe you just want to tell school board members a little bit about what we ended up with when it comes to charter capital funding, and then also your thoughts on that as well moving forward. We've seen some districts rise up to try to do it at the local level, share capital dollars. So maybe your thoughts on that movement as well.
Well, my feeling is that students of public charter schools are public school students, and that the money ought to follow the student. And so therefore in the Senate, what we did was put together a funding proposal that would not have had all the money follow the students. I wish we could have done that, but it had most of the money. I'm going to say about half the money follow the students as far as capital outlay is concerned. And that would have done two things. One is that it would have ensured that no matter where a student went, their share or some fraction of their share of capital outlay funding would have followed them. And secondly, it would have eliminated the need for this log rolling debate that we have every year about charter school capital outlay funding. You know, why treat public charter schools differently? Why not put them in the funding formula and you know, make the assumption that if a child goes to a public charter school, that they still are kids, and that therefore we need to be fair in the allocation of resources. The House didn't see it that way. And of course we had some senators who didn't see it that way, and we were unable to get that done. But what we did do was, in putting together a separate fund for charter school capital outlay, we changed the formula so that the money would not be used based on the formula that had existed, which candidly favored some of the large corporate charter school models. And instead, now charter school capital outlay funding will be weighted toward those charter schools that accept free and reduced lunch students and kids with disabilities. I think that's a step in the right direction, but I would, instead of doing that kind of social engineering, which I think is better than nothing, something a lot better than nothing, I would have rather simply had the money follow the student. But that may be too. And also, frankly, we had tremendous opposition from the Florida School Board members, School Board Association, and from the large school districts. They didn't want the money to follow the student because they felt, in some cases, that this would put them at a financial disadvantage. There were a couple of superintendents who made the point that they'd already obligated all of the capital outlay funding that they possibly could even conceive of having, and they already owed it to the bankers in New York. And so therefore they would become insolvent if they had to have any portion of the money follow the students. It turned out that was a bit of hyperbole. I think there was one school district that had grossly overspent in the capital, but most of them hadn't. So this would not have been the end of the world, but politically the votes simply weren't there, and the support and push simply wasn't there to get it all the way through the legislature. But that's sort of how that issue came about and how it was resolved. Well, I believe that Speaker Corcoran and President Negron will probably take up the issue of charter school funding and capital outlay funding in the future, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made some additional positive changes and equitable changes there.
That's exciting. That is something we've, as a coalition, worked on trying to figure out the capital funding model and how we can make that equitable. So that is exciting news to hear. Board Member Moss asks, has the CAPE program been as successful as you had hoped?
The Career and Professional Education Act, which I had the privilege of sponsoring, and then expanding and expanding and expanding, including this past year, frankly has exceeded the expectations of those of us who wrote the bill and got it passed originally. We now, I can't keep track because there's so many, we now have well over 400,000 students who have earned national industry certifications. And what we've learned about those students, according to the Department of Education, is that they're doing better academically than students, than the average student in high school. You know, the assumption was that, hey, these kids who will earn these industry certifications and be in these career technical courses, you know, they're the kids who are, you know, not going to do as well. These are the quote unquote bad kids or the poor performers. Turns out these were students who, for the most part, were bored. And the worst thing you can do, I think, to particularly a high school student is bore him out of his gourd, or her out of her gourd. So what we have now are courses ranging from IT to culinary arts to healthcare. Gosh, I think it's we're up to about 155 different career areas where students can earn national industry certifications, and those certifications then translate into a passport into the real economy. I was meeting this morning with the Building Industry Association in our area, and they were just delighted at the number of students who are coming out of schools here in Northwest Florida with credentials in the construction industry to go right to work, and whether it is in computer-assisted design or whether it's in actual construction, they're going right to work. And 40% of the industry certifications that are being awarded in Florida right now are at the same time earning college credits. So you have the student satisfying high school requirement, earning an industry certification, and receiving a college credit for the same course. And they're being able to do that at their own pace. Some students can move faster. You know, seat time is being eroded, thank God, and pushed back, you know, into the museum where it belongs, so that students can actually be taught on a more customized basis. So in answer to the question, I think CAPE has exceeded my expectations, and we're learning that these students are doing better academically. They have fewer truancy problems than the general population. They're having a higher articulation into college and university, and they're getting jobs that are paying more and doing better economically than the general student population. So it's working exactly as we intended, and that is that it's flashing the opportunities and resources of education to the realities and opportunities in the economy. We can always do better. I want to do better. You know, but I'm very, very proud of the role that so many of us played in getting the current Professional Education Act not just passed, but implemented and strengthened and expanded. Sorry for such a long answer, but you're talking about one of my children here.
And that brings us to the next question. Of course, we'll give you as much time as you like, President Gaetz. The question about your children is: are there any children, if you had one more session in you, which child would you like to see, grow into an excellent adult program and take to fruition? And sort of in the greater context, how can the coalition help focus on that so that we can make manifest that?
I believe that we have to reform and improve the testing and assessment system in our state. If we don't, we're going to lose it. There's a perfect storm right now of those who always have detested any kind of measurement, along with those who believe that there's some sort of United Nations Barack Obama plot associated with testing and assessment, along with those who very reasonably and rationally look at duplicative, triplicative assessment that's not valid, that's, just seems to be overlaid one on top of the other, and say it's too much. There's now a perfect storm of all of those forces together, left and right, and in the middle, who are rising up, and what they're going to do is, over time, they're going to erode and sweep away any kind of educational assessment in our state unless we can reform testing and assessment. And by reforming it, I don't mean watering it down. I mean getting back to a valid and reliable approach to finding out how students are doing, not duplicating testing. Good God, when a kid does well on an AP test, if he gets a 5 in an AP biology, we don't need to retest him with some kind of state test that's at a far lower level of expectation to find out if he knows anything about biology. I mean, there's just a bunch of things like that don't make sense that we have to fix. And if we don't fix it, I believe we're going to lose accountability or have it dramatically eroded. So if I had one more session, and I'm sure there's a loud cheering section, particularly in the Department of Education, delighted that I don't have another session, but if I had one more session, I would bear down on testing and assessment, and I would get it passed.
Thank you. At this point, unless anyone raises their hand or posts a question, I'm going to hand it over to our president, Erica Donalds, for closing thoughts. Okay, Erica?
Okay. Well, thank you again, President Gaetz. We always look forward to hearing your thoughts on these issues, and very much respect your experience and in all of these areas, especially since you've been in our shoes before. So thanks for all the great information that you provided today, and we know your time is precious. We appreciate you spending it with us. Thank you to all of our members who participated today. We welcome you, of course, to all of our virtual events, and the next roundtable will be announced shortly. Those are member-led roundtables on current topics. If you didn't know, we had one last week on Thursday, just hours before the President's edicts came out, on none other than transgender policy. So certainly we've established ourselves as the organization that's bringing you the most pertinent issues right as they happen. So definitely pay attention for those announcements coming soon. Any other questions for us, you can reach out to Sean directly or myself. And again, thanks everyone for coming. Special thank you to President Gaetz, and we hope to be seeing you soon.
Thank you all very much for allowing me to participate, and I want to salute you for the courage that this organization has shown in forming itself, in providing a respected, thoughtful, persuasive voice for local education control and education reform in our state. It's courageous of you to form your organization. Absolutely fantastic that you were the power and force behind getting many of these provisions passed. And there's always more work to do, Reform is never finished. Success is never final. But I think all of you can feel as though this past legislative session was a victory for you and a victory for the issues that you've stood for.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much for those kind words.
Thank you all very much.
Have a great day, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.